All right, let's just jump right in. Welcome to today's documentary explainer, where we're unpacking a truly fascinating premise that completely challenges our fundamental understanding of history, unidentified aerial phenomena, and honestly, human genius itself. The core of the source material we're looking at today asks a totally mind-bending question. What if historical UFO sightings and the inexplicably advanced inventions of minds like Nikola Tesla aren't evidence of distant aliens at all? What if instead they're evidence of time-traveling humans and extraterrestrial intervention? We're going to systematically break down the physics, the eyewitness accounts, and the suppressed technologies presented in this theory. So this brings us to the overarching mystery of our entire explainer. What if extraterrestrials are actually extratempestrials? I mean, instead of always looking up at the stars and wondering where these unexplained aerial phenomena come from, the source material asks us to consider that maybe we should be looking forward on a timeline. What if the visitors documented in our past are actually just us, visiting from our own distant future? To understand how this could even be possible, we have to start with the theoretical physics foundation, the science of the wormhole. Let's trace this all the way back to the halls of Princeton University in 1935 with physicists Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen. They proposed the Einstein-Rosen bridge. Basically, it's a theoretical shortcut. Imagine the universe is a flat piece of paper. To get from point A to point B, you normally have to travel all the way across the surface. But if you fold that paper in half and punch a hole straight through it, you've just created a wormhole. This concept is absolutely crucial because it solves the impossible math of space travel. You know, the nearest star system to Earth is 4.2 light years away. Even if we traveled at 186,000 miles a second, it would still take over 4 years. Wormholes theoretically bypass that barrier entirely, acting like a cosmic shortcut. But okay, here is the immense hurdle we currently face. To create a traversable wormhole, you need a material called exotic matter that has negative mass, and you need absolutely staggering amounts of energy. We are literally talking about taking the entire mass of the planet Jupiter and converting it to pure energy. That's millions of times more powerful than a nuclear bomb. However, researchers point out a fascinating loophole here. The chaos of the Big Bang could have mashed space-time so violently that many wormholes the size of atoms were created, and as the universe expanded, so did they. Meaning massive, naturally occurring wormholes might already exist out there, just waiting to be used. So, how does this translate into the real world? Let's move on to our next section, encounters with time travelers. We're shifting away from the complex mathematics now to reported physical encounters, beginning with one of the most famous unexplained events in history, the December 1980 Rendlesham Forest Incident in England. Picture this. During a routine security check, U.S. Air Force personnel, including Airman John Burroughs and Sergeant James Peniston, investigated some strange lights out in the forest. As they approached, the atmosphere physically changed around them. They reported the air feeling electrically charged, and bizarrely, time itself seemed to slow down. They then came face to face with a 6 to 7 foot black triangular craft. And unlike any standard military prototype, this thing was etched with strange pictorial glyphs. Now, the really crucial point here is what happened when Sergeant Peniston actually touched the craft. He reported this sudden, overwhelming download of ones and zeros flowing directly into his mind's eye. He frantically wrote down pages of this binary code the very next day. Years later, a programmer translated it, yielding a totally chilling message. Exploration of humanity continuous for planetary advance, eyes of your eyes, origin year 8100. I mean year 8100. That origin year forces a massive shift in perspective. It explicitly points not to another galaxy, but to a future timeline. The aftermath of this encounter was profound. The eyewitnesses suffered physical symptoms that were basically identical to radiation exposure, vision problems, white gums, but perhaps even more unsettling were their recurring nightmares. They reported vivid dreams of time travelers from up to 50,000 years in the future coming back with a desperate mission to fix things and correct a horrible catastrophe that requires them to alter the past. And this wasn't just some isolated time distortion. Consider April 1977 out in the desolate Chilean desert. A military patrol led by Corporal Armando Valdez saw violet lights descend. Valdez approached the light and just vanished. To his squad, he was gone for merely minutes. But when he reappeared and collapsed in front of them, he had a heavy 5-day beard growth, and his watch was displaying a date exactly 5 days in the future. He had literally lived through 5 days of time while only minutes had passed for his men. Upon his sudden, shocking return, Corporal Valdez uttered this incredibly ominous phrase to his squad. "You don't know who we are or where we come from, but we will be back soon. Given the vast, uninhabited deserts and glaciers of Chile, the source material suggests it's actually the perfect hiding place for entities observing humanity, leaving us to really ponder what their true agenda might be. This brings us to another highly classified chapter: humanity's insectoid future. We're pivoting now to a 1953 crash in Kingman, Arizona, and the astonishing claims surrounding what was recovered and allegedly taken to Area 51. For decades, the story was always that the military was reverse engineering extraterrestrial tech, but in the late 90s, military engineers and microbiologists came forward with a claim that totally flips the script. They alleged the government was working with a living entity named J-Rod, and the extraterrestrial hypothesis, the idea that J-Rod was from a distant star system, was supposedly entirely wrong. Instead, J-Rod confirmed the extraterrestrial hypothesis. He was a human being from our own post-apocalyptic future. According to the whistleblowers, J-Rod claimed that after a near-future catastrophe, humanity is nearly destroyed and splits into two species. One of those species is forced underground to survive. Over time, in that dark, subterranean environment, they develop insect-like or insectoid traits. Now, here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. These classified modern claims perfectly mirror ancient Native American traditions. Hopi, Zuni, and Navajo legends all speak of a time when the surface of the earth became completely uninhabitable, and humanity was forced to survive underground with the help of what they explicitly called the ant people. It's a really compelling narrative overlap between top-secret whistleblower claims and ancient indigenous history. So if we entertain the idea that advanced beings from our future are trying to subtly influence or guide humanity to prevent a catastrophe, did they ever directly intervene by gifting us technology? Let's take a look at Tesla's otherworldly inventions. The explainer now shifts to one of history's absolute greatest enigmas: Nikola Tesla. Consider the astonishing pace of his work. In 2007, MIT researchers made headlines for wirelessly transmitting electricity just 7 feet. 7 feet. Yet back in 1899, Tesla was in Colorado Springs successfully sending electricity miles through the earth to light up bulbs. By 1901, with funding from banker J.P. Morgan, he built the massive Wardenclyffe Tower in New York, which was designed to broadcast energy wirelessly across the globe. But in 1904, when J.P. Morgan realized Tesla intended to provide this power entirely for free, well, the funding was instantly cut. Corporate interests simply couldn't monetize free global energy, and the tower was ultimately demolished. But how was Tesla achieving scientific feats a century ago that we still struggle with today? Well, Tesla himself described his creative process in highly unusual terms. He didn't just iterate on paper like a normal engineer. He experienced intense flashes of light, after which an invention would appear in his mind in complete, rotatable, holographic detail. He could mentally take it apart piece by piece before ever building a physical prototype. He genuinely believed we were essentially biological receivers working on impulses from the outside, which leads the source material to theorize that he was actually receiving blueprints from an otherworldly knowledge base. This theory gained serious traction in July 1899. While tracking thunderstorms with a highly sensitive receiver, Tesla intercepted a transmission that consisted of 3 sequential mathematical beeps. It was so structured and deliberate that it just didn't make sense as natural static. Tesla boldly proclaimed to the press that he believed he was in communication with extraterrestrial intelligence. Naturally, that statement was heavily mocked by his scientific peers and enemies, like Thomas Edison, and it ultimately damaged his reputation. Despite the public fallout, his work didn't stop. Let's delve into our next section: suppressed anti-gravity technology. His work just went further underground. Let's explore his highly classified later concepts, many of which are reportedly hidden within the 160,000 documents housed at the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. According to historians examining these archives, by the 1920s and 30s, Tesla was deep into the science of field propulsion. He was designing anti-gravity ships. And the crucial detail here is that these craft had no wings and carried absolutely no fuel. They were entirely electric and designed to be powered remotely by the wireless energy grid he was trying to build with his Wardenclyffe towers. Interestingly, ancient astronaut theorists draw a direct line between these concepts and the Vimanas, those wingless flying chariots capable of instantaneous directional changes described in ancient Hindu texts. This brilliantly illustrates just how far ahead of his time he was. Compare Tesla's 1920s death ray concept, which was a directed beam weapon intended to shoot down missiles and projectiles to end warfare entirely, to a modern military system revealed in 2014, Israel's Iron Beam. It's a high-energy laser defense system designed to do exactly what Tesla envisioned nearly a century prior. It raises the distinct possibility that Tesla possessed a time-viewing technology, or was quite literally being fed future technological blueprints, which brings the documentary's narrative to a stunning philosophical climax. Was Nikola Tesla simply a visionary, once-in-a-generation genius? Or, as the source material posits, was he something more? Was he an avatar, an enlightened mind specifically placed or guided by extraterrestrial or extratempestrial forces to systematically usher in a totally new era for mankind? The stakes of this entire theory are summarized perfectly right here. If Tesla had been allowed to succeed, the world we know today would be completely unrecognizable. The source material argues we missed out on a literal golden age. We're talking about a reality with free tabletop energy, capable of desalinating the oceans, greening the deserts, powering anti-gravity craft, and perhaps even unlocking teleportation. All of it was suppressed by powerful corporate and financial interests before it could transform the globe. And that leaves us with one final, provocative question to close out this explainer. If you believe the military whistleblowers, the time-distorted eyewitnesses at Rendlesham, and the timeline of Nikola Tesla's suppressed genius, if advanced beings have indeed come back from a post-apocalyptic future to drop technological breadcrumbs and guide us toward a better path, what catastrophic event are they still desperately trying to prevent? Keep that in mind the next time you look up at the night sky. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep questioning the timeline.